Nebraska Preps Postgame with Damon Benning and Jacob Padilla.
Welcome you back for another week of Nebraska Preps Postgames with my main man, Jacob Padilla. And hey, listen, does your business need easy, competitive financing for trucks or equipment? Currency is here to help. Currency specializes in finding the best available rates and terms for construction equipment, farm machinery, trucks, and trailers. In fact, customers can get loans for up to $500,000 with little or no money down and terms up to 72 months. Currency can also help you if you're getting serious about buying a new or used motorhome, fifth wheel, or utility vehicle. How about that? Just fill out an application at the Courtesy Finance team, and they'll work on finding you a lender with the most competitive options. It's quick, secure, and free to use. Currency is equipment financing made simple. Visit gocurrency.com for details. JP, how are you, buddy?
Pretty good. How about you, Damon?
Well, you know what? I am, as you can tell by my voice, I'm shot, but I'm ready to go. Another week, survive and advance.
Yeah.
And that's really what it's about, right? It's not always pretty, but you find a way to make it.
Yeah, well, I was checking the scores at halftime. I went to Belly West Gretna and saw your halftime score, and it's like, oh boy, wonder what kind of mood Damon's going to be in when we talk this week.
That was one of
got to figure it out.
We did, and I joked with the guys. It was one of the I don't know if it's going to be famous or infamous halftime speeches that I had to give with my football team, but. I should say our football team. But hang on, Shane, I got booted.
Just re-enter it back in.
Oh, okay. It always helps when there's a guy that's smarter than you working this deal. But it was probably, Coach Lamanji was really big. He said, hey, let's kind of remain calm, this, that, and the other. And I said, hey, I just need 2 minutes. And it was about all I got. I got one of those in me a year. And I felt like, so there were a couple of things that set me off. Number one, I felt like we were waiting to light switch this thing again. And Southwest was too good of a team to kind of be going through the motions. Number two, I didn't feel like, we were respecting the game like we should have. And there's lots of other things that people can be doing. So if you want to go do something else or something else is more important to you, then by all means, right? So I wanted that to be known. And perhaps the thing that stuck in my craw the most, just because Lincoln Southwest was so well traveled, the stands were full. The parents were literally applauding at the half for having such a good performance against us. Which I understood, right? I mean, it was
respect the game.
Yeah, but it let me know, right? Like, you're not accustomed to being in this position, and it shouldn't be at your guys' expense. Yeah. And that was kind of the message. So,
well, it went on to work. So we're leading off the bat with Class A here, and number 1 seed Omaha West Side with a 42-28 win over 8 seed Lincoln Southwest, and West Side was up 7-0 and down 21-14 at halftime. And then they went on 21-0 coming out of the locker room and in control of that thing.
Got a 3 and out, really got rolling. I thought we were much more physical. We gave up a late score with kind of, I think it was both teams had kind of taken their starters out and conceded. And so I felt like in the second half, defensively, we played a ton better, and offensively, played with a little sense of urgency, and Anthony Rizak really got going, and that doesn't hurt.
Yeah, and Kyle Newell, we talked about him last few weeks. Pretty solid game, 140 yards on the ground, 2 scores. As a team, they ran for 270 yards, 6.3 yards a carry. So got you a little bit on the ground.
He had a long run. He had a 70-yarder. We kind of fell asleep, but we felt like up to that point we had kept him pretty bottled up, and he's a load. Right, I mean, he's hard to get to. He was hard to bring down to the ground, and I like some of their offensive schemes. Yeah. Right, they really put you in a bind.
And he held them to 60 yards passing, including, like you said, that late touchdown when the starters were out of the game there. So also forced 2 turnovers, I believe, or Southwest forced 2 turnovers. Yep. So you guys a little shaky with the ball, but again, put up 42 points still, and got the job done. So number 1 seed still alive.
Yeah, survive and advance. Because as you know, this time of year, man, does it get hectic in a hurry.
As we will see as we move on here throughout the rest of these the playoffs here. The other side of that bracket, number 4 Grand Island fell behind 10-0 out of the gates to Millard South, the 12 seed that wasn't really a 12 seed. We talked about that, how good they've been with Kim. And but Grand Island rallied there, 28 unanswered to end the game. Did not give up any more points. Won that thing 28-10. Really impressive performance by the Islanders.
I tell you what, the week before we kind of wondered how they did it without Chrisman.
Yeah.
They get
They got
Chrisman
him back.
and now they've got a 2-headed monster, and they're so efficient with what they do. Obviously, I'm neck deep in watching Grand Island film and getting ready for these guys. Their ground game, inside zone, little outside zone. They got a good RPO game, and they have turned teams over. It started with North in the regular season. They got 5 or 6 turnovers in that one, and it has just come in waves for this defense.
3 interceptions for on a very good quarterback. 3 sacks.
Yeah, Cam's legit.
Yeah, 3 sacks on a guy who's pretty mobile back in the pocket. Really impressive defensive performance. You mentioned Chrisman, 76 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns, caught a pass for 13 yards, had 5 tackles.
He's
just kind of
legit.
doing a little bit of everything. But speaking of doing everything, how about Colton Marsh? Pick 6, a 4-yard receiving touchdown. He completed a pass for 58 yards. He ran the ball once for 17 yards. He had 8 tackles. He returned 2 kickoffs, and he returned 2 punts.
Yeah, they put him everywhere.
Yeah, a little bit of everything for that kid.
He's a really good player. So I think it's one of those where we know, we've thrown records out the window because we've talked about GI, right,
Yeah.
JP? It's like
You've seen him.
The only 2 losses they had were to Elkhorn South and to Omaha West Side, and they have been impressive against everybody else since then with some really good wins.
And how about that bounce back after that loss to Elkhorn South in their own place? They just got a run off the floor or run off the field, and to bounce back and come back from that and make this run and to
against a physical team like North. They got the good upset win against Kearney, which kind of got the thing started, and they haven't looked back.
No. And Cohen Evans, efficient, completed 16 of his 24 passes.
Gosh,
kind
he's
of
a
short
big kid.
Yeah, short passing game there, only 139 yards, but a touchdown and 1 pick. So they won the turnover battle. And again, 28 unanswered to win that thing, especially falling out 10-0 not to bat an eye to come right back and to take control of the rest of that game is a really impressive win.
Yeah, jumping down to the other half of the bracket and with
Speaking of Elkhorn South,
right, in Creighton Prep. Now this game was weird, right? We talked about this. I just want to go back and listen to kind of our thoughts, and we felt like if you're built a certain way, we felt like you could game plan isn't the right term, but Elkhorn South isn't going to wow you with flash and dash. I mean, it is good O-line, D-line play, tremendous running back, and up until this point, they had taken tremendous care of the football. But Prep, built for good trench warfare, boy, they answered the dinner bell and then some.
6.5 tackles for loss, just 1 sack, but they were in his face. 4 interceptions, including 3 in the first half, all by John Pargo Jr. And they forced a fumble as well and recovered it. So really strong performance by that Prep defense. And Cole Ballard, he racked up at 100 yards, 111 yards on 23 carries. But they also forced a fumble and kept him out of the end zone, which is something that nobody else had done this season. Again, 38 touchdowns. And they kept him out of there. And there was only 1 touchdown in the entire game. That was Ezra Vedral right out the gates. Came in there and scored early on in that one.
You like what they've kind of done settling in at the quarterback spot? Because it seems to have helped their defense too, because they possess the ball.
Yeah, Tony Caniglio is kind of firmly entrenched now as the starter there, with Vedral mixing in the option and here and there. And Vedral didn't get loose in that game. He only had 8 carries for 12 yards, but again, had the 1 touchdown in the game. And Caniglio only threw the ball, completed all 4 of his passes for 13 yards. But the team ran 42 times for 211 yards, and including Marty Brown back looking good, 23 carries for 132 yards. So that was kind of the story of their offense. Again, they only scored 10 points. So it wasn't like just a dominant performance by that offense. You still kind of wonder, but you hold the team to 3 points, you don't have to worry about putting many points on the board yourself, and that's what they did.
I have to go back and look at the stats for the season for his health and Marty Brown, but is Westside the only team to hold him under 100 yards?
Probably. I can't really think off the top of my head because even Gretna, he broke off some long ones. And
they have played a monster schedule. So for him, statistically speaking, his output, he has been unbelievably consistent for Creighton Prep. Because he's coming.
Yeah.
There's no real surprise, and he still continues to do work. He has been nothing short of fantastic.
Yeah, and they needed him in a big way, and he made it back from the injury that knocked him out late in the season, and delivered. And see, just looking here,
yards per. What do we got?
This is last year. Never mind. Wrong one. The joys of trying to look something up live. But in the meantime, at Elkhorn South, I mean, that defensive line up front, that was working. Asher Murphy had 9 tackles, 2 tackles for loss. Maverick Noonan had 9 tackles and a sack. Noah Bustard had 8 tackles, a tackle for loss. But Prep kept pounding it away. And again, with Marty Brown leading the way, just phenomenal season. The yardage, there was less than 430 yards total in this game. Prep only outgained Elkhorn South by 22. But again, you keep him out of the end zone, then it doesn't really matter how many more yards you gain than the other team.
Hey, so let me ask you, watching that kind of firsthand, what was Elkhorn South missing? Because I think you like them. You're one of the few that had very few criticisms, right? Like, I think you like their consistency all year. What was it? Simply the turnovers against Prep?
It had to have been. Like, I talked about how good Carson Ronner had been balancing out the Cole Ballard led running attack and ability to get the ball where it needed to be. They hit some big time shots, and you didn't account for them. Ripped off some big runs on the ground. None of that happened in this game. So it's credit to that Creighton Prep front in particular, and then the back end taking care of business again. Pargo Jr. 3 picks in 1 half. I don't know how many times that's happened for anybody this entire season at any level. Really impressive performance. So that's really, the Elkhorn South 6 of 19 passing. With the 4 interceptions. And that really is the game right there. And he only gained 9 yards on 3 carries. So it didn't break off any of those long ones that we've been seeing from him all year. And Omaha Central held him to 98 yards because he only ran the ball seven times.
I do remember that.
Yeah.
7 for 98.
But 1,370 yards, 15 touchdowns, 6.7 yards a pop. And again, miss some time in the middle there. And, the Burke and Central games, he ran the ball combined 15 times because he didn't need to. So, yeah, Sharma Brown heading off to North Dakota State. Quite the season.
Doesn't he fit their style?
Yeah.
What you see is what you get. You don't have to babysit him. A real tough guy, like just consistent, man. He is. I don't know. A lot of respect for Marty Brown.
And so Prep, as the 11th seed, gets number 2 Gretna waiting in the next round. And this was a game I was at, rematch of probably the game of the year in Class A, certainly, between Gretna and Bellevue West. And again, it was a tight battle throughout. Bellevue West delivered the first punch, jumped out to a 14-0 lead. They led 21-14 going into the 4th. And then the 4th just completely belonged to the Dragons, 21-2. And the 2 came at the end when Zane Flores ran out of the side of the end zone with 1 second left as Gretna was trying to run out the clock. So just took the safety, punted it, kicked it off, game over.
Let me ask you something, because this is I think this is the 4th loss for Bellevue West. All games in which they'd led by at least 1 score. I think 3 of the 4 double digits. Is it more, in your opinion, the defense's inability to kind of get stops or the offense's inability to possess the ball?
In this case, it was a little bit of both. in the fourth quarter. Again, they played a good game up to that point. They forced the first turnover, forced a fumble on a little, I think it was a Boganowski tunnel screen to stop Gretna's first drive, went back down and scored, went up 14-0. And again, Gretna rallied, and then they responded, got that touchdown to take the lead late in the third quarter. But in the fourth quarter, they just didn't have any answers, and they were moving the ball for stretches, but lost possession. And so basically the fourth quarter went like this. Gretna put together a touchdown drive. Flores capped it off with a QB sneak, one of his 2 QB sneak touchdowns. WS is moving the ball down the field. They tried to throw from the right hash to the left sideline, little bubble screen type of thing for Isaiah McMorris. And just kind of bizarre play. The ball hung up. It was pretty high in the air. He jumped for it, bounced off his helmet, shoulder, whatever, and went right to Alex Wilcoxon's hands for the interception. So just a fluky play, but one that Gretna was able to take advantage of, and they went down and scored.
Even in football, Wilcoxon has a knack for being in the right place at the right time. We know his hoops prowess. Yeah. I'm a huge fan, so that's why I'm just like.
Well, and how about a kid? He's their backup quarterback, but this year found a role on defense and ended up being a really key part for them.
So competitive.
Yeah,
like he is fearless, and I saw it firsthand all summer with basketball. He embraces the challenge, and he's like the kids really like him, man. I'm pretty impressed with Alex.
Yeah. So after that pick, Gretna went down and scored. Flores hit Isaiah Weber on a little pass up the middle, 14-yard touchdown.
How clutch is Zane Flores?
Yeah, the only passing touchdown of the game. Go figure. You're going into this game with Danny Kalin and Zane Flores, and they combined. They barely hit 300 yards combined, 1 touchdown between them. That's not the kind of game that you were expecting going into this. But
draw it up that way.
But WS, their surprise kind of secret weapon, they rolled out Jaden Bullion at running back for the first time all year. He had a really good year for Central last year as the ball carrier. And so he was the workhorse back all game long. And after the Gretna's touchdown here, got it back to him. He ripped off a long run off the left side, cut it back towards the middle, running through guys, ended up kind of a pile got to him, and somehow the ball just popped up in the air. And Ethan Storr, who had a really good game and has a great season, ran it back not 80 yards, but 60-some yards down to the 4-yard line.
64 of them.
So there you go. It was hard to get the yardage total from where I was standing, but because the play went away from me and then came back to me. But yeah, down to the 4-yard line, and then a few runs, they punched it in, and suddenly Gretna's up. They're up 2 scores, 35-21, and then that's kind of all they had because Bobby West tried to move down the field but turned it over on downs. So three turnovers, including the turnover on downs, 3 touchdowns for Gretna in the fourth quarter, and that was ball game.
Dying to get your opinion. Battle tested here the last month of the season. Nothing has come easy for Gretna. Does that run out this Friday? Or do you think they have now mastered not needing everyone's best in terms of this high-flying, prolific passing game as they've kind of been grounded a little to find ways to win?
Well, key for them was getting Isaiah Weber back, and he had 113 yards on just 18 carries and a touchdown. Yeah. And he had, again, the 1 receiving touchdown in the game, and he just adds another dynamic to that offense that makes him tougher to guard because – and he's tiny, but he's got such good feet, good vision running up the middle.
And he's got a good squatty frame.
Yeah, the way he avoids defenders in traffic, steps around them, just great footwork. So like that's huge for them getting him back. I think you have to feel better about Flores going into that situation. Like I don't think they're going to be able to force Flores into the same mistakes that Ronner made because. We know Flores has been there. He's been there for 4 years. Was in the final game last year. Led his team to win in that one. So they haven't quite been as high flying as maybe we thought they could be. Obviously, some injuries at the wide receiver lost some guys to graduation over the last couple of years that hurt that. But they're a pretty solid team. And again, that defensive front, they've got the kind of front that can match what Prep's going to do on the other side of the ball.
With maybe the most underappreciated of the interior bigs all season, to Mason Goldman, right? Like, how good is Goldman? He's
So Goldman, Stur, Corver Dema, Harrison Weber, all those guys took turns making plays. Each of them had a very important splash play throughout that game. And that's kind of what we talked about with Elkhorn South, how you had 4 difference makers across that line.
right.
Gretna's got the same thing.
And
Yeah.
Prohaska and Noonan, and they had a nice group.
Yeah, if we kind of thought that Elkhorn South was the best, I think Gretna was right there with them all season long with those difference makers, and they get a chance to show it again against a really good Creighton Prep offensive line.
Knowing what you know, and you had a chance to reseed the Final Four, how would you seed it?
Whew. Geez. I think 1 and 2 are as probably as they should be.
Westside Gretna.
Yeah. Well, that's tough. The way both Grand Island and Creighton Prep are playing right now, that's.
How about just playing well at the right time? Both these teams found their rhythm when it mattered most.
Well, and that's like you're not blown away by either offense for Prep or Grand Island, but you don't need to be with the way their defenses are playing right now. Again, like Creighton Prep,
they definitely
Prep didn't have a great offensive game against Elkhorn South, but they did just enough to let that defense nearly pitch a shutout. And Grand Island, again, everything they got was centered around those turnovers, and give them short fields, give them a chance to steal possessions there, and that's how they ended up coming out with that one. So 2 defenses playing at a high level. We know Westside and Gretna, they've got difference makers on the defensive end as well. So I think it's going to be a really fun Final Four for sure.
Gonna make any predictions?
I'll go with the top seeds there.
Like 1 versus 2.
Yeah, I think we get a rematch. It's fitting, right? Like
to
see.
It's a lot of unfinished business.
But again, like I didn't pick either Grand Island or Creighton Prep to advance to this point. So keep proving me wrong, guys, because those teams are on a special run right now.
So it's interesting if Westside wins over Grand Island, bigger draw, a rival like Prep, or the newfound rival in Gretna.
As a Prep alumnus myself and understanding that rivalry, I think it's got to be Gretna with everything that happened last year, and to immediately to bring it back.
Them in a lot of other sports, and then to run it back would be unbelievable.
The basketball crowd last season after that, that was probably the best atmosphere for a game that I went to last year.
And I remember that game because of the huge concussion, but I remember that environment. I couldn't believe that gym because it's kind of old school, even if it's in a new building, and it was packed.
I was lucky to get a seat.
Guys just do not like Westside. That one would be. Listen. We just want to get there. That's not coach speak and I told you this last week. The thing with Grand Island, just their ability to turn teams over now.
Yeah.
Like they are generating turnovers and I'm watching them, and I'm not any one dynamic individual player, but it is good team defense, and they always have 4 or 5 guys around the ball. There's a lot of purple around the football when balls are deflected, and you get a little careless with it, man. They make you pay.
And you guys are going to have to be careful. You have turned the ball over a little bit the last few weeks. So that's
no question about it. No question about it.
Let's move on to Class B, though, where I think no surprises, no close games, no upsets there. The top seeds kind of took advantage. Obviously the first round upset was Grand Island Northwest over Elkhorn, the 4 seed, but 5 seed Waverly moved on, and Bennington, kind of a workmanlike, just gradually pull away. It wasn't ever a knockout blow type of deal, but 34-13 win over Elkhorn North. Nick Colbert, another 200-yard game.
He's pretty good.
On 21 carries.
It's pretty good.
That's
he's got the long, free-flowing hair, kind of looks unassuming. He just does work.
Yeah, math isn't my strong suit, but that's about 10 yards a pop. I can do that one. And Trey Bird, 273 yards passing, a touchdown, 57 yards rushing, a touchdown. Isaac Connor, 7 catches, 189 yards and a touchdown. So, and Gunnar Lime, junior there, 6 tackles, 2 interceptions. an 18-yard punt return. So those guys have been playmakers for that team all year long, and they showed up in their quarterfinal win.
If I had told you in the quarters that the closest game score-wise would be played between Elkhorn North and Bennington, you'd have said what?
I was like,
Wait,
really?
what?
Yeah.
I mean, there were some
that being
impressive scores.
And that being said, like we did see Elkhorn North push them the last time
Yep.
they met during the regular season. That was the closest game that they've had in a long time. I don't think they had a game like that all year last year. So, but even then, it's still a 21-point game, and that's the closest we got. So, credit to Josh.
Scottsbluff and Scott kind of surprised me a little. I knew Scott would have a hard time matching Scottsbluff's physicality, but I don't know if I saw 33-0.
Yeah. Just kind of wrapping up on the first one, though, just want to give credit to Josh Basilovic, the quarterback for Elkhorn North, who heavy load all season long. He had 170 yards passing and 2 touchdowns and 82 yards rushing. He had most of their yardage in that game, like he had all season. He had every one of their nearly 1,800 yards passing and had nearly half of their 2,000-plus yards rushing. Had 32 of their 48 touchdowns. So this is a guy, obviously, it's a school. They're building that program up. This guy meant a lot to that program. This season was a huge part of what they did all year long and carried that team. So I just want to give credit to a kid who had a great season there. But I guess Waverly Grand Island 30 to Northwest 30-7 in that one. This Grand Island Northwest could not run the ball, and Waverly was stiff in the back end. Austin Payne completed less than half his passes for 134 yards and only 1 touchdown. 113 of those yards went to Tegan Lemkow and touchdown, who had the big play against Elkhorn, the long catch and run in that one. That kid's fast. He impressed me. I hadn't seen him play before. But that Waverly, Trey Jackson, 13-19, 191 yards and 2 touchdowns. Evan Cassins, 96 yards on the ground. And what Waverly has done all year long is they just give the ball to everybody. He had 6 different ball carriers. They spread it around. Cassins is kind of the workhorse back, but you never see him catch.
I think them going through all their injuries last year let them know that they could play a couple of different ways with a couple of different players. Like, I really think it's helped their balance in 2022.
Yeah, I don't know that there is a team like among the better teams in Class B that has as much balance. Like you got superstars in basically every other really good team. You know the names, the guys that they're going to rely on every single game. Waverly just does it with 5 different guys every single game, which is impressive. And that's got to be hard to prepare for a defensive coordinator, not knowing, all right, who's going to be touching the ball on any given play. So that's impressive. 5 seed moving on. They'll face Bennington. And did they play? Do you remember off the top of your head?
I don't off the top of my head. I don't think they met in the regular season. I really don't, because I think that would have stuck out to me. But who knows? I mean, I could be drawing a blank here, but
they did not.
Yeah.
So Bennington played pretty much everybody else, but Scottsbluff and Gross. But first meeting, Waverly's in at 8-2. Bennington obviously undefeated 11-0. So that's the top half of the bracket. And then you mentioned Scottsbluff and Scott. 33-0 Scottsbluff. And you said you were surprised. I wasn't really seeing them play against Lincoln Pius X. And Scott won that game. And I was impressed with the game that Matt Holtham had and had some other guys. But it didn't feel like that. Everything was a struggle for them in that game, I thought, to move the ball. And I just wasn't sure. Scottsbluff's been pretty solid all season long. And I just wasn't sure how well they'd be able to move the ball. And that Scottsbluff defense, 8 tackles for loss, 6 quarterback hurries, an interception, 2 fumbles recovered. So that just kind of wreaking havoc all day for quarterback starting for the first time, I believe, this year in Turman. So they didn't quite have the firepower that we've seen from Scott over the years. But I think Scott probably this season probably went about the way it should have. They made it to the point that their talent level probably suggested they would.
How physical will this one be as Gross hammers York?
And York's a team that had made things, kept things close. They'd made things tough on other teams. So to win that thing 42-6, That is really impressive.
It's a good football team. That's a really good football team. Listen, I mean, how physical is that one going to be?
And so, and look what
how tempted are you to go to that game?
I was planning on it if I didn't have to be at the Devaney Center.
Oh, that's right. You're double dip. Well, you can't even double dip now.
No, I might have to borrow your NFHS login to watch that one from down at the Devaney Center. And how about Scottsbluff at 33-0? They were able to kind of keep things light for Sebastian Boyle. Only 7 carries for 78 yards. Braden Stoll, who has had a great season, 19 carries, 211 yards, 5 touchdowns from that cornerback spot. So you got, assuming Boyle is fully healthy and ready to go, you got Boyle against Garcia with both those offensive lines.
Yeah.
That game is not going to last very long because there's going to be a lot of running.
I love Garcia's patience. Well, he is such a crafty runner. He understands the ground game. He really does. And he's just a sophomore. I think people kind of forget that he's legit because it's an older team. I think they have 29 or 30 seniors on that Gross team. Like that's an older physical bunch, and
all those guys play both ways.
Yeah. They don't bat an eye.
No, they've been doing it all season long.
Yeah, they don't bat an eye.
Again, they're Class C, C1 in size, opting up to play in B, I believe. So you're going to have guys playing both way with those kind of numbers. And again, it hasn't slowed them down one bit this season. So really impressive. I think that's probably the Waverly, Elkhorn. You weren't quite sure which one of them. Those were the clear top 5, I thought, separated from the rest. And so to have those 4 in the Final Four definitely makes sense. And that's kind of what we thought we'd see.
You want to try to sneak in some C1?
Yeah, let's knock it out. Aurora, 48-28, win over number 9 seed Lincoln Christian. Carlos Collazo, obviously been injured for a bit here. I don't 100% know his status.
I don't either.
So that's obviously, as we get here into the semis and finals, that's going to loom large. But rolling up 48 points, they roll up 43 in the first round.
And Boone Central, a team that's accustomed to winning.
And Boone Central knocking off Ashland Greenwood, and not only knocking them off, 41-15.
Decisively.
Yeah, they just wreaked havoc defensively there. 8 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 2 picks, 2 fumble recoveries, and a 228-62 edge in rushing yards. Parker Borer had 145 yards on the ground and 2 scores. Alex Christo, 95 yards passing and 3 touchdowns, 80 yards rushing, and another touchdown for Boone Central. So really impressive performance by them. It was 7-0 Ashland Greenwood in the first quarter, and then Boone Central 34-0 in the second and third quarter.
That'll do it.
Feeling tipsy.
Ball game right there. So impressive for Boone Central. Adam Central, we talked about McCook.
Oh boy,
knocking them off.
This was a surprise for me.
Yeah, but Adam Central is a team that I think people were high on early on in the season. Obviously took a couple losses there, but talent's still there. 31-14 win over McCook. Hyatt Collins, 145 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. Adam Central, 9 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 2 picks, 2 fumble recoveries. So again, defense is wreaking havoc and making life tough for offense. That's been the story of the big wins in the playoffs. And
my hot take is that Adam Central Pierce game will be closer than the experts think.
Well, Pierce, 33-23, Columbus Lakeview. Obviously, both these teams made a deep run last year. The 7 seed there made it close. It was actually 20-0 through 3 quarters, and then Lakeview tried to rally in the fourth quarter, outscored them 23-13, but ran out of time. Abram Schulten, 156 yards and 3 touchdowns passing, 65 yards and a touchdown rushing, 7 tackles, and Ben Bramer, 102 yards receiving. Just 1 pass for 53 yards and a touchdown. Had a carry for 19 yards, 3 tackles. So it's a pretty dynamic duo there for Pierce in C1. So we got the 1, the 5, the 6, and the 2.
Heck of a matchup.
And just running through C2, we get the 9 and the 12 in the top half of the bracket as Battle Creek upset Hastings St. Cecilia and Hartington Cedar Catholic took down Malcolm in overtime. And on the other side, you got chalk with the 2 seed Ord and the 3 seed Norfolk Catholic. Again, 2 teams that
they just win.
No stranger to the postseason making deep runs there. And in D1, we got the 1 versus the 5, North Platte St. Pat's, and we'll take on Neely Oakdale. And the 3 and against the 7, Stanton taking on Clarkson Lee. And in D2, we got the 1, Howells Dodge, And how about the 12 seed Central Valley upsetting 4 seed BDS 42-20? Then we get 6 seed Bloomfield and 2 seed Hitchcock County in the other
looking
semifinal.
for Howells in Hitchcock County, which hopefully is different than the opener that they had to start the season. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. That is another week. That's rapid fire. We're over 30 minutes, but listen, it's a podcast.
It's postseason time. We got to get it all in.
Yeah, the clock. Who needs a clock? That's my man Jacob Padilla. I'm ODB. It's Nebraska Preps postgame. Don't you miss us. We'll be back next week.